Thank you very much for that wonderful and rousing welcome to our panel of speakers this afternoon. First of all, can I say that it's a great privilege today to be chairing this conference, and could I start by asking you all to join with me in thanking our co-sponsors, the International Committee in Search of Justice and the Belgian Parliamentary Committee for a Democratic Iran. We are particularly delighted that we have such high-level speakers, many of whom have come a great distance, many from America, who've come to be with us today and to participate in our conference. We are, of course, more than delighted that we have with us Mrs. Maryam Rajavi. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that we are holding this important conference today against the disastrous background of the increasing cruelty inside Iran, where only days ago Jafar Kazemi and Muhammad Ali Haj Akai were executed simply for the crime of having children in Camp Ashraf. That is an utter disgrace, and Iran should be ashamed of itself. The mullahs have hanged 88 people so far this year. 10 were hanged in one day alone last week. But first, they were brutally flogged before being dragged to the gallows. And anyone who tries to expose this evil, like Nasrin Sotoudeh, is immediately targeted. The mullahs have now taken to arresting, torturing, and hanging the parents of refugees in Ashraf. Simply visiting your son or daughter is enough to guarantee a death sentence when you return to Iran, as we saw, indeed, in the horrific judicial murder of Ali Saremi in late December. In a pathetic attempt to appear dismissive, the criminal regime in Tehran describes the PMOI as a terrorist grouplet. And yet this so-called grouplet features on top of every agenda, at every meeting between the mullahs and their neighbours in Iraq, at every meeting with representatives from the EU and the US. They fear them because they know they are the only realistic opposition to their corrupt fascist regime. The PMOI networks inside Iran were the ones who risked their lives to expose the regime's aggressive nuclear plans to the West. Number one target is that iconic symbol of resistance to their regime, Camp Ashraf, and its 3,400 courageous residents. We know only too well the lengths Khamenei went to prevent the removal of the PMOI from the EU terror list. I know from my own personal experience how hysterical they became when we invited Mrs. Rajavi to come to the European Parliament to address the ruling EPP political group. At that time, Javier Solana was our High Representative for Foreign Affairs, and he was placing urgent calls to Angela Merkel, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, Nicolas Sarkozy, Silvio Berlusconi, and Wolfgang Schüssel, who was at that time the Chancellor of Austria, and virtually all of the other key leaders in Europe, stating openly that Tehran was threatening to pull the plug on the nuclear talks if we went ahead with our meeting with Mrs. Rajavi. I myself received ominous phone calls from people claiming to be senior officials in the Foreign Office in London, but who subsequently turned out to be MI6 intelligence officers. Strange that the exiled leader of this insignificant grouplet should merit such hysteria in Tehran. But we won those battles. We resisted the pressure. We invited Mrs. Rajavi to the Parliament. We exposed the lies and the distortions which had been used to justify the PMOI's listing on the British and EU terror blacklists. And in successive court cases, we were victorious, finally forcing the British and the EU to remove the PMOI from their lists and to restore their reputation as valid campaigners for freedom and democracy. And we exposed the wretched policy of appeasement which led to the terrorist listing in the first place, and which to this day still pervades and poisons our strategy in dealing with the evil Iranian regime. Now, like a cornered rabid dog, snapping and biting at anything within range, the regime even claims that the uprising which followed Ahmadinejad's stolen re-election was the handiwork of the PMOI. They may describe the PMOI as a grouplet, but it's clearly a grouplet that has awesome powers. Like the majority of Iranian citizens, we know that there is no realistic alternative inside the regime. Mir Hossein Mousavi became the figurehead leader of the Green Movement as the default opposition to Ahmadinejad after the blatantly swindled election fraud. But when it counted the most, the spineless extremist of the 1980s, Mousavi, betrayed even his own supporters in order to save his own neck. Now he is irrelevant when it comes to the opposition to the mullahs. The real hopes of tens of millions of Iranians is the PMOI. And that's why they are feared and loathed by Tehran. The mullahs believe that they can handle the West, but they don't know how to deal with the PMOI. They play games with the West, zigzagging through a succession of talks, always playing for time, stretching out the West's obsession with dialogue at any price, while in the secret bunkers and caves of Iran, manic activity continues to produce their first viable nuclear warhead. And we fall for it again and again. Baroness Ashton, our High Representative for Foreign Affairs, left Istanbul empty-handed last weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, if we go on playing for time, we will end up paying for time, and we will pay dearly. A nuclear-armed Iran will be a global threat. While the West continues to play these silly games, Iran spreads its evil influence across the Middle East. We handed Iraq to the mullahs on a plate. Now thousands of trained agents of the Iranian regime have infiltrated every strata of Iraqi society. And it's the same in Lebanon. Iran no longer hesitates to state publicly that its forward defense line now passes through Lebanon and Palestine. So we must stop this ludicrous game of hide and seek, abandon the failed policy of appeasement, and confront the mullahs before they gain hegemony in the Middle East. And it doesn't mean armed invasion. It means backing the main opposition in overthrowing the fascist dictatorship. It means taking the PMOI and the NCRI off the US terror list. And it means recognizing the symbolic importance of and providing protection for the brave residents of Camp Ashraf. It means stop talking to the despots and start listening to the people. Back the Iranian masses in their efforts to overthrow this brutal and corrupt tyranny. Back the PMOI in their efforts to bring democracy, freedom, women's rights and human rights to Iran. Back Mrs. Rajavi in her campaign to clear Iran of nuclear weapons. Ladies and gentlemen, 252 years ago today, on the 25th of January, our great Scottish poet Robert Burns was born. Burns hated tyranny in all its forms. And let me read you the final two short verses from his famous poem of praise for King Robert the Bruce of Scotland, because I think it can serve as our battle cry here in Brussels today. By oppression's woes and pains, by your sons in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but they shall be free. Lay the proud usurpers low, tyrants fall in every foe, liberties in every blow, let us do or die. Thank you very much.
The level of the speakers, their pasts, their credentials, their wisdom, obviously made of Ashraf, made of the need to change dramatically the situation and the attitude towards the Iranian resistance, made it a mainstream phenomenon. I think that all of us, we can agree. I know that there are still some disagreements on how can we proceed, but let's go right now on what we are absolutely convinced, and we are absolutely convinced we have to get out the PMOI of the terrorist list also in the United States. We have to protect PMOI militants in Ashraf. We have to protect them against this ongoing torture, and we have to do it right now, and we must say it, and we must force the international public opinion to make this effect as soon as possible. And last but not least, we are absolutely certain that one way or the other, freedom, democracy, and the respect of the human being will win in Iran, and we will certainly be there to celebrate this day. Thank you.